Stardew Valley is a game that rewards hoarding. Steadily building up piles and piles of resources and money is the cornerstone of most goals in the game. Expanding your farm, completing the community center, achieving perfection. All of these require such absurd amounts of items and wealth that stockpiling those assets becomes essentially mandatory. But what if you weren't able to? What if, every time you started a new day, you found that all of your items and money had vanished without a trace, leaving you only your most basic tools and the clothes on your back? To most, that would be an utter nightmare. But for someone like me, who adores restricting my playstyle in absurd and interesting ways, that sounds like the perfect foundation for a brand new challenge. Using a mod created by J, a wonderful and talented member of the community, I'll be embarking on a journey to complete the community center and achieve perfection, among other things, in a world where I have to source all of my items and money from scratch every single day. Will it even be possible? Well, there's only one way to find out. Welcome to the troubled and transient world of Fleeting Farm. I hope you enjoy. If you've been around my channel long enough, you'll know that this isn't the first time I've dabbled in inventory restrictions. A while back, I attempted the Ultimate Iron Man challenge, in which I wasn't allowed to use chests and was restricted to a single inventory slot. Fleeting Farm is the spiritual successor to that challenge, taking its core theme and adding onto it in its own twisted way. While I'll at least have access to more inventory space this time, many of that challenge's rules will also apply to this one. Namely, no universal storage options, things like chests, fridges, auto grabbers, basically anything where there's no limit on the types of items it can hold. And the backpack upgrades, while not strictly off the table, will only be available once I reach specific milestones, the first being to complete the community center. And that's on top of the core concept of removing all my money and items between days. To that point, here's a more detailed breakdown of all the restrictions I'll be playing with. These will also be listed in the description for quick reference, and if you're confused or have any questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to clear everything up and address any edge cases. As for my goals, like I mentioned at the start of the video, I'll be trying to complete the community center and achieve perfection. Without any perfection waivers, naturally. I also have a third major goal, which itself has 3 smaller sub-goals, but I'll reveal those as they become more relevant. However, what I can tell you is that all of these goals are way too ambitious to focus on right off the bat. So let's scale things down a little bit and focus on just this first spring. By the end of the season, I have 2 things that I want to achieve. Commission my first house upgrade, and obtain a steel trash can. The house upgrade probably makes sense. It's a pretty standard early game goal that gives me more room to work with, unlocks the kitchen, enables marriage, all that good stuff. Plus it feels just ambitious enough to be reasonably doable within my first spring. But why the steel trash can of all things? If you don't know, you can upgrade the trash can in your inventory just like any other tool, by bringing Clint the appropriate money and metal bars. When upgraded, the trash can allows you to reclaim some value from anything you throw away, starting with 15% of the item's sell price with a copper trash can, and going up another 15% additively with each upgrade. So putting something in a steel trash can will give you 30% of its value. And since the shipping bin will be essentially useless for making money, any alternative sources of income become significantly more important for me. And the trash can in particular caught my attention because it can be used to make money anytime, anywhere, without having to worry about making it to a shop in time or anything like that. In a pinch, that instantaneous cash injection could mean the difference between a critical purchase and missing out entirely. Of course, I'll be trying to set myself up for success in other ways throughout the season too, but these are just the 2 big things I'm hoping to accomplish. So with the rules and goals established, let's move on to the settings of the farm itself. I opted to remix the community center bundles and mine rewards for a bit of extra variety. Some of the remix bundles could definitely prove, problematic, so hopefully I won't come to regret this, but I think it'll be fun regardless. Then I moved on to arguably the most important decision of the challenge, choosing a farm type. Ultimately, while all of the farm types have their own pros and cons, I decided on the Meadowlands farm. The obvious benefit being that I get a coop and 2 chickens free of charge, saving me quite a lot of time, money, and resources. The thing that actually sold me on the Meadowlands farm though, was the oak dresser. Normally a dresser would cost a few thousand gold from either Robin or the traveling cart, and weirdly enough, no other farm type starts with one. The reason it's so nice to have one is that it allows me to store an infinite number of boots, rings, and other clothing. And since it's limited to just clothing, it's one of the few storage options actually available to me, making it an enormous quality of life upgrade. So with my farm type decided and Chloe dressed in her classic Iron Man duds, I was finally ready to hop into my first day of Fleeting Farm. The first thing you might notice is that I started spring first with a whopping 500 gold to my name, as you do every time you start a new farm. This didn't really feel in the spirit of the challenge though, so I got rid of it with a quick debug command. The second thing you might notice is this gray money counter. It tracks the total value I've lost over the course of the challenge. So anytime I end the day with extra money or items, or anytime I trash something myself, that value is tabulated here, just to give an idea of how much I'm missing out on thanks to my restrictions. You can think of it as a what might have been counter. Anyway, my first order of business was to meet my new baby chicks, Tiny and Shrimp, before clearing some debris around the farm and selling it all off to afford all the seeds I might need for the spring crops bundle, bearing in mind the possible changes from having remixed bundles. I also made it a point to meet every villager I could, including the objective best girl in Pelican Town, to make sure I could complete the introductions quest as soon as Willie arrived back home the next day. This quest itself isn't all that important, but it's a stepping stone for a particular strategy we'll touch on shortly. I spent the rest of the day scouring my farm for mixed seeds, an invaluable resource when money is so hard to come by, and upon planting my absolute bounty of seeds, I moved on to the second day, which brought with it the first of many help wanted quests. Ordinarily, these quests are, at best, great ways to earn some solid friendship points with a little extra money on top. For me, however, they're the gateway to a pivotal strategy that will serve as a cornerstone for this entire challenge. I'm talking, of course, about journal banking. See, most quests in Stardew Valley reward you with some amount of money, ranging from less than 100G to upwards of 5,000. Crucially, however, you don't receive that money immediately upon finishing that quest. Instead, your reward sits right here in your journal, giving you a constant, pulsating reminder that your hard-earned money is just a click away. But you don't have to claim it right away. In fact, you don't have to claim it at all. It'll stay right there in your journal indefinitely. Normally, you'd have no reason to do that, but since it's the only way I can carry money directly between days, it's a game changer in this challenge. There's no limit on how many rewards you can stockpile this way either, turning the journal from a menu you might easily forget about into arguably my most valuable tool. The catch is that journal banking is very, very slow. Given that most rewards will be 500 gold or less, and that you're not even guaranteed a new quest every day, building up any decent amount of money this way will probably take multiple seasons, if not years. For that reason, I'll be treating the journal bank as a sort of emergency fund. It'll be a good safety net if I need it, but I won't rely on it as a central moneymaker. And that brings us back, as many things do, to Willie. I went to meet him at the beach, claiming both my bamboo pole and my first complete quest. Introductions doesn't have a cash reward though, so I'd have to wait a bit longer for my first journal deposit. I fished away the afternoon, earning enough to buy a solid crop of potatoes as part of my future plans for the house upgrade. More on that later. Then brought Haley a fresh daffodil, both because she absolutely deserves it, and because it netted me my first 100 gold in the journal bank. I kept fishing for the rest of the day too in order to level up a bit. The next day I found that Tiny and Shrimp, despite their names, had grown quite considerably and had laid their first eggs. Going forward, leaving animal produce on the ground will usually be the right call since I can let it accumulate and sell it all at once, but I harvested these first eggs both to push towards level 1 farming and to complete the Getting Started quest for another quick 100 gold in the bank. I sold those eggs, along with a decent haul of fish, for nearly 1,500 gold in total. Then I spent 450 of that gold on copper ore to complete another Help Wanted quest, earning, 240 gold in return? Now, before you go making fun of my math skills, remember that this 240 gold is tucked away safely in the journal now, whereas the 450 gold I spent to get it would have vanished between days regardless. So while it seems like a stupid idea on the surface, it just goes to show that you really have to think outside the box for a challenge like this sometimes. Following that, I spent the rest of my money on a couple small fish tanks from Willie. Each of these can hold one swimming fish, one bottom feeding fish, and one decorative object. The sheer variety of objects I can store with these makes them very appealing. Not to mention that fish can be an excellent source of both money and food. The only real limitation is finding space to fit them, but as long as I'm alright with living in a makeshift aquarium for a while, that shouldn't be too problematic. I fished the rest of the day away, getting all the way to level 4 fishing. And honestly, the next day was more of the same. Hauling in enough fish to afford another tank and some extra seeds, then going right back to the water, passing out with my rod in hand like a true sweaty angler. I chose Trapper for my level 5 profession to make crab pots more viable in the future. Then I buckled up for the big paradigm shift, that is, Spring 5th. This day was critical for one very important reason. My best bud Timbeeb joined the party. Every good challenge needs a mascot, right? After that blessing, I went and checked the traveling merchant stock. She comes through Cindersap Forest every Friday and Sunday, and I want to get in the habit of visiting her early, because if she has anything that I'm interested in, I'll want to leave myself enough time to earn the money for it. Today, however, nothing spoke to me. I moved right along to my next stop for the day, unlocking the community center. Then continued up to the mountains where I found my first artifact, which I promptly donated to the museum for the archaeology quest and another big deposit for the journal bank. And then it was time for today's main feature, the mines. Accessing the mines is a bit of a double-edged sword. Literally. The rusty sword took up another precious inventory slot, for a few floors anyway, but it was a necessary sacrifice since spelunking without a weapon is pretty ill-advised. To help mitigate my inventory woes, I tossed down my fishing rod at the surface. It's a good habit to leave behind anything that isn't immediately useful. That way I'll have plenty of room for the many actually useful resources available here. And those resources came in handy pretty much immediately. Thanks to that earlier Help Wanted quest, Clint had already bestowed me with the furnace blueprint, so I was able to put all of that copper I mined to good use and craft my first couple machines, marking the beginning of yet another critical strategy. While items in my inventory will be deleted overnight, anything left in a machine won't be, letting them effectively serve as very small, very limited chests. Furnaces can only store metal bars, but as I expand my farm and gain access to more and more artisan equipment, machines like these will undoubtedly become a core pillar of the challenge. In between crafting these two furnaces, I managed to reach floor 10, snuck in another museum donation, and even picked up a small glow ring and some stylish new boots. All in all, an excellent first trip to the mines, capped off by leveling up in farming and mining. The progress kept rolling into the next day too. I focused on making a scarecrow to start with, gathering the materials as I worked my way to the Wizard's Tower and got my first look at the remix bundles. Thankfully I managed to dodge the sticky bundle, which would have been pretty problematic, rolling the new forest bundle instead. The spring foraging bundle was the same as ever though, and since I'd noted the locations of forage throughout the week and made sure to leave enough on the ground before they reset on Sunday, I knocked out the bundle immediately, opening up the next two rooms. You do get 30 spring seeds for finishing this bundle as well, but the Junimos will hold on to these rewards if you don't claim them, so I decided it was best to leave them behind until I had a good use for them. After planting Greg the Scarecrow down at home, I donated a couple fish I'd been saving for the bundles, then decided to return to the mines to make use of the good daily luck. Of note was this coal truck on floor 12. There are a few of these coal deposits scattered throughout the mines, and it's in my best interest to leave them behind until I can make use of that coal. It's a bit of a detour to come back and get it later, but coal will be a tricky resource for a while yet, so it's definitely worth saving what I can. I pushed down to floor 15, then committed some time and resources to crafting my first crab pot. I plopped it down in the lake to get a leg up on the crab pot bundle, before locking in the day with my first foraging and combat levels. The next morning, my first couple crops for the spring crops bundle had matured, so I ran them to the community center before making my way to Lewis's house to give him a spare potato as a birthday gift. But not before he introduced me to the prize machine, another nice benefit of focusing on Help Wanted quests. For every 3 quests that I complete, I'll earn a prize ticket, which I can redeem at this machine for an assortment of useful goodies. I'll have to be a little careful with my timing though. If I get a ticket and it's too late to redeem it, it'll disappear overnight like any other item. Similarly, if I redeem a ticket but I have no way to use the prize itself, that'll also be a waste. Thankfully, you can at least see what your next few prizes will be, so I should be able to plan accordingly. And I actually had 2 Help Wanted quests to complete today as well, which would make me eligible for my first prize ticket, so I headed to the beach and got fishing. What I didn't know though was that the prize ticket wouldn't be the most valuable thing I brought back from this little fishing trip. Mother catch, let's go. Jewels of the sea, excuse me. Well, that is a surprise. Oh my gosh, okay. Ooh! Holy cow! That's an insane grab! What? Ancient seed, and I can donate it. There's time to donate it. Holy! I don't even know the last time I got an ancient seed from fishing, of all things. Yeah, I guess I got a little lucky there. I made a mad dash for the museum to guarantee that this wouldn't go to waste. I'd also gotten both fish I needed for my quests, so I redeemed both of those, claimed my carrot seeds from the prize machine, and ran home to get everything in the ground immediately. Barring a lucky crop fairy, the ancient seed won't be useful for another full season, but getting one within the first week was still pretty incredible. A stroke of luck I wasn't likely to match anytime soon. I rode that high all the way to the mountain lake and finished the day off by fishing up a few more easy community center donations. My crop of potatoes was ready the next morning, the first major step in my plan for the house upgrade. By this point, you're probably wondering what exactly that plan even is. I've been glossing over it, but 10,000 gold is a pretty staggering amount to earn in a challenge like this, especially so early on. How exactly am I going to make that much in a single day? In a word, cauliflower. Being the most valuable spring crop I can currently access, planting and selling a bunch of cauliflowers is the most straightforward way to make the kind of money that we need. But while it's easy to say, just plant cauliflower lol, being able to actually afford enough cauliflower seeds is another matter. At 80 gold apiece, they're the most expensive spring seed at Pierre's general store, so buying a ton of them requires a good amount of money on its own. Not to mention, they take a whopping 12 days to grow, so we'd have to plant all the cauliflowers we need on or before spring 16th to get any use out of them. And how many of them do we need exactly? Well, it's hard to say specifically, but accounting for different qualities and assuming we reach at least level 2 farming before the harvest, the average cauliflower will sell for 183.75 G. Mathing that out, we would need about 55 cauliflowers on average to make 10,000. Those 55 cauliflower seeds, in turn, would cost 4,400 G. And while we don't have to buy those all at once, that's still a substantial amount of money to invest. And that's where these potatoes come in. Potato seeds are both considerably cheaper and grow much faster than cauliflowers, taking only 6 days to mature. That means we have enough time for 2 potato harvests before our spring 16th deadline, hence why I planted as many as I could back on spring 2nd. By selling all of those, along with some wayward eggs, I was able to afford another 38 potato seeds today. If luck is on my side with the second potato harvest, I should earn just about enough to buy all the cauliflower seeds I need for the final stage of the plan. And if not, I'll still have a couple days to get more cauliflowers in the ground. Either way, I should be sorted to easily have 10,000 G in crops by the end of the season. And that only leaves the 450 wood to worry about, which, well, we can worry about that later. For now, I figured it was best to push a bit deeper into the mines, and the game seemed to agree, rewarding me with my second ancient seed in as many days. I reached floor 20 shortly thereafter and made a quick detour to plant the seed, as well as to drop off this crayfish at the community center, before rounding out the day with one more furnace and a couple new levels. Spring 9th opened with an unexpected twist, a 500G cash injection from Daddy Dearest. I definitely didn't want to waste this money, but I hadn't been planning for it either, so I had to make a split decision on what to do with it. And ultimately, it felt like the perfect chance to make some progress towards my other spring goal, the steel trash can. Obviously, I can't get that without first getting the copper trash can, which requires 5 copper bars and 1,000 gold. Half of that had just been paid for, so I set my sights on gathering the rest. The copper came quickly enough. Now that I had unlocked floor 20, I could dive down to floor 21 repeatedly to mine everything I need, which, oh hey, another ancient seed. Neat. Anyway, I backtracked to floor 12 for the coal truck I had left behind, and that gave me everything I needed to have 5 copper bars just past 11 AM, well ahead of when Clint would close, so things were looking good. Of course, I still had to cobble together another 500 gold, but I had a bit of an ace up my sleeve. I'd actually been holding on to a couple of extra weapons I'd gotten from the mines in the hopes of selling them to the Adventurers Guild later. Remember, weapons are like tools in that they don't get removed from my inventory, so this is kind of a cheeky way I can store some extra money between days. My inventory space really suffers for it though, so generally I won't want to hold on to extra weapons for too long. The elf blade and the wood club sell for 100 gold each, so I really only needed 300 gold to make up the difference. Normally I might go fishing for that money, but given that the Adventurers Guild only opens at 2 PM, I would have to sell my weapons, run all the way to the beach to sell whatever fish I had scrounged, and make it to Clint before he closes at 4 PM. It didn't seem realistic, so I instead opted to stay at the mines, gathering whatever copper and minerals I could in order to sell to Clint himself and hopefully earn enough for the upgrade. By the time 2 PM rolled around, I had an extra 4 copper bars and 2 quartz, which altogether would sell for $290, just shy of what I needed. But luckily enough, I also had 2 random bits of slime which I sold to the Adventurers Guild for exactly 10 gold, giving me enough for the upgrade and not a bit more. I rolled up to Clint's shop right around 3 PM, sold the extra resources, and commissioned the copper trash can. Even though I didn't technically own it yet, this felt like the first tangible piece of progress towards my spring goals, a permanent upgrade that took me one step closer to where I wanted to be. And all it had taken was an unexpected handout, a mad scramble through the mines, and selling all of my worldly possessions. Man, I love this challenge. Of course, there was still plenty more work to do this season. I already knew that I had my work cut out for me with these goals, but this day had given me my first real taste of exactly how brutal and precise this challenge could be. And as it turned out, things were only just getting started. Hey, thanks for watching. This video took me a lot longer to make than I expected. I started streaming this challenge back in September, so I'm sorry if you've been waiting that long. The next one will come out much more quickly though, I promise. Hopefully this first video gave you a solid understanding of how the challenge works, and if you're eager to see more, there's a link to the stream playlist in the description. The challenge is still ongoing, so spoiler alert if you tune into the latest streams. Anyway, that's about it. Have a good one.